Alright, so here's the raw materials that was given to me by Dennis Chilcote. And this is the birch bark here. He gave me a few sheets of it. It's been rolled up and it's dry. The Tupperware of the forest. And what I need to do is I need to reconstitute this so that we can work with it. Meaning I need to get it in some hot water. Usually boiling water works the best, so that it can be pliable again. But for some of these sheets here, I've got what's going to happen to it is these lenticles, which basically essentially allow the birch tree to breathe or have a way to get nutrients and oxygen to the inner workings of the tree. It's a pathway between the inner tissues of the tree, the birch tree, and the atmosphere outside. These will create easy pathways for cracks. So what I'm going to probably do with this outer sheet, and I'm going to covet this, and I'm going to use as much of this as I can because Dennis was very generous with me about this, and I want to thank him for that. I'm going to just probably take a X-Acto blade and cut what I need from this. I could take a leather hole punch and make a hole here, which should stop the crack going, but I can't get that in there without making that worse. So I'm probably going to take a carpenter knife or a carpenter knife, basically utility blade, and just make a fresh cut here, and then I'll have material to work with for another smaller project or something. But this is the raw material. I hope to get out sometime and harvest the actual raw material itself. His class is going to be in June up at the North House Folk School, and I'm not going to be able to make that, unfortunately, this year because there's a waiting list, and I didn't get on it. So, but I was able to procure this from him beforehand. So, anyways, this is what the raw material looks like. You harvest it, and you wrap it up, let it air dry, then reconstitute it when you need it. Okay, so here we are again in my bathroom, and I've got the birch bark, the raw birch bark. I've already cut off the points where it's going to just basically shred on me, and we got to reconstitute it, basically make it pliable again so it doesn't crack on us while we're trying to get at least a good piece to work on. And so I'm going to plug this up and I'm going to run some hot water on it. And probably what I'm going to do is also I'm going to heat like a pot of hot water and pour it on there because we were trying to get this bark pliable so we can safely unravel it so that we can cut it properly. So this is the birch bark that it's been soaking for probably about an hour in just regular bathtub temperature. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some boiling water on top of it, and then we're going to attempt to straighten it out. So I need to go get that vat of water and then pour it on, and then we're going to see what difference does it make, right? What we don't want to do, and I do not advise this, is any wood materials to soak in your tub for long periods of time. Do not do that. The tannins will put a permanent ring in your bathtub. So that's a caveat, right? That's a warning. So be mindful. This is a short time. I'm gonna put the hot water in. We're gonna stretch it out so I can cut a decent square or rectangle that we need, and then we'll flatten it out and let it dry flattened until we're ready to use it again. And then we'll just reconstitute it again. Not a big deal. Okay, so I have a big steaming hot pot of water here. it was boiling, so it's approximately 212 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm just going to pour this over and let this soak in so we can make sure that we can unravel our raw material birch bark and shape it the way we need to make a flat fit form for our pattern, because that's what's coming next. Alright, so I'm going to be careful because this water is going to be hot, and yeah, so this is nice. Yeah, the texture's changed a bit, and yeah, it's split, and that's okay. I'm okay with this. I definitely am okay with this because it gives me some good pieces to work with for this project. So, and you can see it wants to lay out. We want to kind of make sure everything's wet. So what I'm going to have to do is work a little quickly and make a space to flatten it out so I can work with it properly. So that's going to be the next step. Okay, what's about to happen is I'm going to take those sheets of birch bark that have been wetted and heated, you know, made pliable, and lay them down on my mat here. You can get one of these from Joann or any sort of a fabric or hobby shop if you have the, you know, if you really work on the, you know, the whole industrial sewing thing. You can get a big one like this. All it is a cutting board, just a piece of plastic, so it's away from the carpet. And then over here, and you'll see I'm gonna have a piece of marble that I use for leather working that will serve as my weight. And so I'm gonna just lay everything down, everything's gonna go, and so I want stuff to dry out or at least be trained to be flat. So that's the goal for this. So here, these are the pieces that we cut off. I have softened them up a little bit, soaking in water. I'm going to put them down and put this brick, piece of marble on top of it. Make sure that they're flat for the time being. And we'll see what happens, you know. We'll work with it. Right now, it is sugaring season. I know that people that are close to the earth that are working to get sugar and syrup are preparing right now, and what I'm not trying to do is make light of this process. All right, what I am trying to do is I'm trying to work towards a goal. So, and again, I wish I was better prepared, but I'm doing what I can. So here we go. So at the end of the day, this is what we have when you, I guess, trying to straighten out birch bark in the house. Alright, so here we go. we're going to start to we're going to start working with the bark here. It's been a couple of days. Last where I left off with the bark was putting it in hot water so it becomes pliable, and getting it flat. It ended up Dennis Chilcote ended up giving me like rolls of it. I thought he gave me sheets, but it ended up being just a couple of sheets of rolls of it. So I have a little bit more. He was very generous. So, and this ended up splitting on me, which is fine. This project is going to require not as much as he gave me, so I can make my own, flat sheets, if you will. So I have my marble leatherworking slab here. You can use a rock, pots of water, just whatever weights for weightlifting weights you can put on here to keep it nice and flat and to lay it out while it dries a little bit, and or to store it, right? So in a cool, dark, dry place would be good. Garage will be just fine generally. So I'm gonna move this out of the way. That's very heavy. Don't want to drop it on my foot. That would be a problem. Be in some distress, as they say. So now I have a sheet of birch bark here. We're probably not going to use this one, but this would be good for something. So make sure I keep that flat. I think we're going to go with this one. It's got some nice grain. It's got some nice texture to it. It's got some good color. This is the opposite side. And again, these stripes that it has, that's how you tell it's birch. Versus, I think, aspen is the other tree that looks very similar. The birch has the lenticels in it, these little stripes. And again, they're just kind of like pores that allow the tree to essentially breathe, is what that is. And so you can see the lenticels here, and that's the pattern that you see here. So we're going to use this board for this piece, or rather this bark for this project. And I'm going to set this aside because we need to work on the pattern. Set that down there. So I've made a number of patterns with this, and I tend to use, I like to use paper bags, generally manila folders work as well. And the pattern itself looks like this, and it's kind of big. So this is what the pattern looks like that we're going to be using. And I don't think this fits on an 8.5 by 11, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this available free for download. And again, the vast majority, I started this channel with me just archiving knowledge. I've got over 2,000 subscribers, so I appreciate that. I've also had a lot of people actually make use of and take advantage of some of my videos, which is great. They're there for inspiration. Again, if you find this useful, put something in the tip jar, please. You go to my channel and donate, or you can see the link below. I'm not going to, really blast the horn on that, but it would be nice if you find this interesting to go ahead and put something in the tip jar. Because a lot of my content, some things I'll put behind a paywall, but the vast majority of it's for free because it's a repository for me. If you get something out of it, that's great. At any rate, this will be the pattern, and this is the shape that I'm going to use. So this will be available for download, so at least you can print this out on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper from your printer, and then you can find a manila folder or tear open a paper bag or whatever material you want to use. You'll be able to copy this pattern. All right. So I'm just going to show you how you would do that. So let's just say this is the pattern that I copied and cut out. And so you take your manila folder, and we're going to fold this. We've got a fold here as it opens, and then we're going to fold it in half again like this. And one thing is you can take a pen and make sure that crease is set, because manila folders are basically cardboard stock. And so what you're going to do is, I'm going to find this bottom here, and that's the bottom, is I'm going to match the bottom, and I'm going to match these corners, okay? So again, this is the bottom, like this. I don't want to fold it over like that, right? But I'm going to just, take it and place my little pattern on top of here. All right. And then make sure it's even, and then I can use my writing tool to mark out the outline. Oops, daisy. Make sure that everything is even, and technically I should stand up to make sure that my lines are correct and everything is precise. Otherwise the container won't look right when we're done, and it'll be a waste of expensive birch bark, especially if you've harvested it yourself. Alright, so this is essentially what we have, the outline. Hopefully you can see that on camera. And I like to take a Sharpie and just kind of color it in. Cut that open. So basically, once we've folded this all open like this, this is how we're going to fashion the pattern. So everything is symmetrical. Is the key. I could have just laid this out on here. It's more precise to do it this way, because when you're cutting all four sides at the same time, right? And I could use an X-Acto blade and a ruler, but I'm going to go ahead and use some scissors for this. So again, I just take this and just cut through all four sheets, because it's folded twice. Just that. Okay. Push my scraps away. Don't need that. And I'm not liking what happened here, and that's okay, because I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna use my X-Acto blade and ruler, straight edge. And that's why I'm on this nice cutting board that I got from it's at Joann Fabrics. I do a lot of sewing. I like to sew. I like to make stuff. I grew up sewing. Grew up playing in my auntie's sewing room for the most part, trying to make superhero costumes and things. Now cosplay's off the hook. Go figure. Can't keep up. No, I'm not a cosplayer. At any rate, this is what we have, and so like I said, I will make this as a download available, and if you follow those steps, you should be able to create the pattern that we need for this container. And we can open this up, and what we want to do then, or what I'm going to do, is, because I don't want to mark up my my little sewing cutting board, I want to mark out, for the sake of this video, kind of where the lines are, so it's easy to see. So I can just kind of tap, 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 tap. This is a fold line. That's why I'm doing the dash, because it's just a fold line. And I don't have the original pattern from the class I took, so I basically just looked at my current model that I have, that I already made, and recreated the pattern from that. This is relatively simple, as you can see. So really all we need to do is to fold these sides up. So I can take this, make sure it's on the line, and put a crease in it, so it knows that it wants to fold up that way, or it needs to fold up that way. And then I'm take this and do the same thing, so it knows that it needs to fold up that way. And then the same thing on this side, and the same thing on this side, like that. Okay. So how this is going to work is, these two sides on the I don't know, this rectangle is going to take this edge and meet in the middle. And so that'll be one side, as you can see, right? And then this side will do the same and meet in the middle, like so. So that's basically the structure of the container, the bowl. Really easy. And so now what we need to do is we need to outline this on our bark and then cut it out of the bark. So that's the next step. Okay, so we have the piece of bark that we're going to use, birch bark, and I'm going to use the red side as opposed to the white side. It's just smoother, easier to write on. I've got a pencil. I prefer pencil than marker or pen in case I make a mistake or something like that. It doesn't show up on my end work, and it's easy to wipe off or erase, right? In a primitive situation, you would use a piece of charcoal from a fire. That was it, to make your lines or to draw out your shape. All right, so from a primitive standpoint, you do that. I'm indoors. I haven't made a fire. Unfortunately, I don't have a briquette grill, a coal or a Coleman or whatever. I have a gas grill, but that's the way the apartment complex wants it. So I can't demonstrate what it looks like with a piece of charcoal, if you will. But anyways, just so that you know that, and you know that I know that I know that. So anyways, take a pencil, and I've laid it out on the area that I'm looking for. I don't want a place with a bunch of carbuncles, and maybe I do, depending on the character that I want. But I want to make sure, especially if it's something I'm trying to make watertight. We'll talk about that later. I don't want any mars or holes or anything. So this area seems pretty good in here, and so I'm gonna go ahead and lay this down, and I'm just gonna go ahead. I got a crack up here I'm concerned about, but I think I'll be far enough away. And again, lay it out, and I'm just gonna draw my pattern on. And right now the bark is dry. It's not wet yet. Yep. You may not be able to see it on camera, but because of the lighting differences, I can see it here. And when we cut this out, you'll see that I can see it. So now the next step is to cut this out so that we can specifically target the piece that we've traced out and get that wet again with hot water. So I'm gonna go ahead and use my straight edge, and I generally have a longer straight edge that I could use, and it might be even better, but it's tucked away somewhere. So I'm just gonna have to be careful, and it may take me a minute, but I need to cut this out, and I'm gonna use my utility cutting tool here. Again, you'd use a rock or your bush knife or whatever, and you might have to make a few passes to get through all the layers. Alright, there we go. So I've got the square cut out for a basket, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to get this wet, and then we'll cut out the other smaller pieces. It'll just be easier. Okay, so we've got our piece all cut out, and I've got it wet, so it's pliable again. It's not so brittle. Now we're going to score where we're going to fold it up, and you would score on the opposite side of the side that you want showing. In my first project here, I had the outside showing, and the inside is the brown part, and I put some decorative embellishments. We won't do all that for this project, but this is so you can know what's capable. So I want this project to have the brown on the outside, so that means I'm going to score on this side. If I wanted this on the outside again, then I would score on this side. So we're going to score on this side, and what I mean by scoring is I'm going to take my straight edge, and I'm going to line up from this point to this corner, from this corner to this corner, where I want it to fold. And I want to take my cutting tool, and I'm going to use the back of it. I'm not going to use the edge, because I'm not trying to cut it. I'm just trying to put an impression in there so that it's easier to fold up. Okay, for the scoring part, I'm just going to use tap water, hot tap water, to get it pliable again. And then on this side, I'm going to use my straight edge and I'm going to match the ends from corner to corner here. And I'm going to use the back of my knife for the spine, not the blade. Use the back of it. I'm just run this a couple of times. And my intention is not to cut it. I just want to score it. I'm going to go to the other side, do the same thing. And then on the sides here, from corner to corner, and then corner to corner. Okay, so this is scored. So we have our rectangle there. And again, I've used the back of the blade to just make a depression. I don't want to cut it. Okay, and that seemed a little off. Or maybe it's the lines. Let's see. Maybe it's the lines. But anyways, I think that's about right. Okay. So now before we fold these ends up, I'm going to use my hot water and get it hot again, get it pliable. And then be careful with the hot water, don't scald yourself. Please use common sense. I want to gently try to fold this up over my straight edge. It's almost leathery. Okay, so that was successful this time. I'll get that folded up. Okay, so we're able to get these sides folded up, and now it's time to use our clips that we made. So what I want to do next is get these sides up and fold it in like so. Okay, got this, and then I'm going to use my clip to hold it in place. Got another one here. It's the one that has a rubber band on it. So I can hold that in place, and then the same thing on the opposite side. And there we go. And this is what we have using our clips.